Colin Cowherd believes Saints head coach Dennis Allen will be the first coach fired in the NFL this season. Ladies and gentlemen, today I bring you Colin Cowherd talking about the New Orleans Saints. Yesterday, we had to dismantle Kurt Benkert, saying that the Saints were going to win one game this season. I wake up 24 hours later, not even, like 12 hours later, and what happens? Boom, we are fighting off another attack. The Saints are under attack in every single direction. I have never seen a 9-8 team. I've never seen a team, just an average team. I've never seen this to where every single person has agreed that this team is going to be the worst team of all time. And so today, we are going to hear what Colin has to say. Now, this video is on the Fox Sports Radio YouTube page. So I did go, so he made 5 bold predictions. We're not going to watch all 5. We're just going to watch the Dennis Allen part. It does happen to be the first part. I made sure to see where it was. The video, I'll tell you this, the actual video has me befuddled because it looks like if you were to go back and have like a 1995 yearbook page, it's what this video looks like. At first I thought, okay, this is just like some kind of scam account who repurposes, TV shows. Like we see that all the time. They upload episodes of TV shows and pass it off as their own thing. This is Fox Sports Radio's actual page posting this stuff. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the graphical layout. It's insane. I mean, Fox Sports, you don't have interns. You don't have somebody who's ever seen like an editing software or anything.
Hey.
Watch this.
My 5 bold predictions.
Did y'all see that? This right here is already, like I said, 1997 yearbook class putting this together. But the Colin fade in, like watch Colin from the clouds. Zoom in on the right side of your screen here. Look at this.
My 5 bold predictions.
Unbelievable.
I can make easy ones. Josh Allen's going to be good. Andy Reid will make the playoffs. No, I don't choose that.
Look at what's happening on the screen. We've got Colin. Looks like a Kohl's men's fall fashion catalog picture. Colin on the right side faded in. Jordan Love is the backdrop. Static image. We have 2 different text blocks with 2 different fonts. We've got colors, don't match anything. We've got red with a blue outline. We've got gold with a black outline. We've got Jordan Love with obviously with the green and the yellow. We have another picture of Colin in the top left. We have an audio kind of feature on the bottom of the screen. And then I think it's also an audio feature doing the same exact thing in a different way on the top left of the screen. Lord.
I'm not looking to be perfect. I'm going to take some bold predictions. Are you ready to go here? The first one's kind of negative. I think Dennis Allen, Saints, is the first coach to be let go. They've missed.
Okay, so we've talked about this before with the idea of Dennis Allen being fired. If the Saints are bad this year, if it all goes wrong and we win 6 games or something, or 7 games, I think 7 games probably even gets him fired. I think there probably would be a conversation to fire Allen because it is a tandem conversation. If you fire Allen, you're moving on from Carr. Carr and Allen are tied together. Allen is obviously a Carr guy. He drafted him. He went and got him in free agency last year or before last year. It's his Hail Mary. It's his last hurrah to save his job. Derek Carr is a 33-year-old quarterback, been in the league for 11 years. Didn't make the playoffs last year, even though he had a winning record. If he doesn't make the playoffs this year, the Saints certainly are not – or if he has a bad season. I don't want to say if he doesn't make the playoffs because if they win 10 games and don't make the playoffs, different story. But if the Saints have a bad season, they are not successful, the Saints are going to move on from Carr. And if they move on from Carr, you would think they're probably going to move on from Allen. That would be his third, or really his second true try at this because you can't really count, the Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston injuries those seasons and things like that. But so why would you fire Carr if you still have the quarterback that he's tied to? You're not firing Carr to then firing Allen to then find this like spark to save the team. Because if you're firing Allen, you would assume the season's already kind of done. You would assume that they've already lost 6-7 games, the season's in the toilet, and we're moving on to the next chapter. And here's another problem that we've talked about before with this Sudoku puzzle of firing Dennis Allen. The Saints defense has been pretty good. The Saints defense has been decent. Dennis Allen is a defensive coach in some circles, namely patent analytics. Dennis Allen is the best defensive play caller in the NFL. He is the best defensive coach in the NFL. So if you fire him, it better be because you have a defensive replacement in mind. Because if you're firing Dennis Allen because the offense is bad, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if you're firing Dennis Allen to bring in an offensive coach, then more than likely you're also going to end up losing Clint Kubiak and Andrew Janocko. There's not too many offensive coaches that I know that would take the job to inherit a staff that's not theirs. What if an offensive coach comes in who has their own system that's totally separate from the Shanahan tree system that Kubiak has? So it's a domino effect to fire Dennis Allen. And then you could say, well, what if you fire Dennis Allen and make Clint Kubiak the head coach? Clint Kubiak has never called, he has yet to call a play for the New Orleans Saints. And we haven't even seen what he looks like as the offensive coordinator, and you're already ready to make him the head coach. Because he might be the interim head coach. So is it worth firing Dennis Allen in the middle of the season to then force your young offensive coordinator who has been in the state of Louisiana for 6 months? Is it worth firing Dennis Allen to force him into being an interim head coach? For what? Why? You're not going to promote any of the defensive coaches to interim head coach. You just fired the defensive coordinator / head coach. So they're all about to be gone pecan. Okay? It is not an easy thing to fire Allen. The mistake was made by Loomis when Peyton left. Sean Payton leaves, Drew Brees leaves. There is an obvious hole in the offense. What we should have done was go and hire an offensive head coach, kept Dennis Allen as DC, and get rid of Pete Carmichael and all the other clowns that were part of Peyton's offensive staff. And we wouldn't be in this situation. Because firing Allen as the head coach makes sense. Firing Allen as the defensive coordinator doesn't make sense. And it puts us in a really tricky position. We're in a good position now where we got Clint Kubiak, who I'm assuming is going to take over the entire offense and the entire play calling, the entire GTO game theory optimization kind of situation here, which is what Dennis Allen doesn't want to do. Dennis Allen wants to call the defense. So right now where I see it, the Saints are in a decent situation, coaching-wise, where Pete Carmichael could not do what I'm talking about. He could not handle the entirety of the offense. He could not handle the GTO, the game situations. So Dennis Allen had to put his hands on some of that. Just like when the Saints were bad with Sean Payton, when those 7 and 9 years, it was because Sean Payton had his hands all over the defense. And the Saints had the 30th ranked defense because Sean Payton's not a defensive coach. Happens, right? So it's much harder to fire Allen than I think anybody thinks.
It's the playoffs back-to-back years. The NFC South, Atlanta and Carolina are undoubtedly better teams. No question.
He had to admit Tampa Bay. He had to admit Tampa Bay. Because he said the NFC South is, Atlanta and Carolina. He's completely omitted the NFC South divisional champion for the last couple of seasons. Tampa Bay, I have been defending the Saints, but I've also been defending the Bucs. If I was the Bucs, I'd be furious that everyone's talking about the Falcons. No one's mentioning the Bucs. But this is crazy. Like him saying that the Panthers and the Falcons are much better than the Saints. He had to have meant the Falcons and the Buccaneers. There's no way he actually means the Falcons and the Panthers. The Panthers are a horrible team. The Panthers are one of the 3 worst teams in the NFL. The Saints are like 5 or 6 point favorites against the Panthers in week 1. And they're favored on the road against Carolina later on the year per DraftKings. So, I mean, I'm just going to chalk that one up to Colin making a mistake there.
Falcons and the Panthers are much better.
I mean, he said it again, maybe not. But, I mean, why would you leave out the Buccaneers? Like, why would you say the Falcons and the Panthers are better than the Saints, but not the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Buccaneers are better than the Saints? Crazy.
Teams. 4 of the first 6 games for Dennis Allen are against playoff teams from last year. I don't see the juice offensively.
The schedule up front is hard. The schedule early on is hard. The 2 biggest games, I think the only way that Allen would like legitimately be on the hot seat in this situation, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's incredibly unlikely. But the only way I could see it is if we lose to Carolina to start, we lose to Atlanta, and we go like 0-6 to start with 2 divisional losses, one being at home against the Panthers. If that happens, it might be like a doomsday scenario where, you know, people are calling for Carr to get benched. It's all going to happen in tandem. Like if we go 0-6 and we lose to the Panthers at home, lose to the Falcons, all this other stuff, get blown out by the playoff teams, then you're going to see this perfect storm of Carr might get benched, Allen might get fired. But that is the absolute sky is falling final destination scenario. I do not think that's very likely. I think that's very, very unlikely we get into that situation. But that's the only possible way that Allen is going to get canned that early on, is if it's so bad that they have to just completely switch things up. They have to say, all right, nope, we're not doing this. Carr's on the bench, either Hainer or Rattler starting. Allen's out of here. Like, it has to be so bad. It has to be worse than we could possibly imagine for him to get fired in those first 6 games. The games are tough. Sure. But if we come out of there with 2 wins against Carolina and Atlanta, or even just beat Carolina, the season is still on track. Like, we're still fine, because then we do play the Raiders and the Broncos and the Giants and the Commanders and the Panthers again. Like, we do have some easier games to where we can get back to that 7, 8, 9 wins, even if we start off 1-5 or whatever it is. You know, we still have some coin flip games like the Browns and the Rams and some stuff like that we could make up the ground. The backside pause of our schedule is much, much easier.
I think Dennis is the first coach to be let go. Number 2 is...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, like there's coaches that I think it makes more sense for them to get fired midseason, and it's much more likely, it's much more possible for them to get fired midseason. You look at a team like Jacksonville, they've struggled so much. Their quarterbacks are like their young core is already in place, so finding the right coach is a little bit easier than our situation where the coach is kind of tied to some of our bigger players like Derek Carr. So Jacksonville's the team that comes to mind that can make a change there. You know, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like who else could get fired midseason? Sean McDermott seems to always be on the hot seat. Buffalo's another one where usually coaches that get fired midseason are coaches where the rest of the franchise is relatively stable. Like the rest of the franchise, you know, firing a coach doesn't also cause crazy turnover somewhere else. Whereas like Buffalo or Jacksonville, like if your head coaches get fired, your quarterbacks are the same. Everything relatively remains the same. Your core remains the same. New Orleans isn't like that. New Orleans is where it is incredibly tied to not just your defensive scheme, not just your defense, but it's also tied to your $100 million quarterback. Tied to a lot. So I just don't think it'll happen. I could see Allen getting fired after the season if the Saints win 7 games, 6 games. I could see that, but I cannot see it happening midseason because I cannot see it being that bad that early. It would have to be a worse scenario than any of us could imagine in that first like quarter of the season. Especially knowing that the schedule gets easier. Like Mickey Loomis is a pretty even guy. Like he's a pretty non-volatile general manager who, you know, he's not Jerry Jones who's flying off the handle all the time or saying all kinds of stuff. Mickey is pretty steady with like he'll give coaches and players some time. I mean, he gave Pete Carmichael 2 years. So he'll give coaches and players time to kind of figure things out. And as long as he believes the Saints are in that 7-10 win world this season, I don't think he would pull the ripcord and get out of there. Now, if we were 0-9 or something, or 0-10, and and his hands were tied, and he had to do something, I think then he might. I mean, last year, guys, think about it. Like, he didn't. Every week we came on here and we said maybe this is the week he's taking Pete Carmichael off play calling duties, because the fans were booing. They were booing the offense off the field at home. Like, it was getting ugly. There was more away fans than home fans at certain games. And he had to answer all those questions week after week after week. And we kept doing the same things, like not scoring on the opening possession, having 3 points or 6 points or 9 points at halftime. Derek Carr having 60 yards passing at halftime. Like, it kept happening. And so I thought at a certain point last year, Loomis isn't going to have a choice. Loomis is going to have to make a change if he wants to save his fan base. It really did get to an area to where I was thinking, I mean, there might not be any fans in the dome. Like, we're getting to a level here where it's kind of a riotous situation. That Detroit game was a riotous situation where there was so much boo. I mean, y'all know the story. Like, the offense getting booed off the field, Derek Carr getting booed off the field. Like, that was a moment where, okay, push may come to shove here, where Loomis probably doesn't want to, but he's going to have to get Carmichael out the building. There's no way he's going to be able to keep Carmichael rocking and rolling. And he didn't. He allowed that to play itself out, which is shocking. So if he would allow that to play itself out, I think he's going to allow Allen to play himself out. Unless, like I said, it is an 0-10 situation or 0-12. The Saints are like laughably bad, which I just don't see happening. But there you go. So a lot of people sent me this yesterday and were saying, like, can't wait till you see this. I think this is just another lazy thing where it's just, I guess people just don't like Dennis Allen and Derek Carr. For some reason, are very polarizing. For a mid-medium market team that's pretty average, 9-8 in a not sexy division, it's crazy how everyone has just agreed to pile on Allen and Carr. It's crazy. Like, there's so many teams out there, so many middling teams that no one even thinks about, no one talks about, with the exact same situation that we have, where just a mid-tier quarterback, just a mid-tier head coach, just a mid this, just a mid that, fighting for a wild card, just are fighting for a 9-win division championship or a 10-win wild card. Like, no big deal. And somehow it's just become this, like, the Saints and Allen and Carr are this laughing stock of the NFL. I don't get it. But let me know what you think. Do you think Dennis Allen will be fired this year? Do you think there's any chance he gets fired in the middle of the season? What would it take for Allen to get fired in the middle of the season? Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.